A very warm welcome to you. Thank you for being with us and giving us energy. Today, as usual, we're gonna talk about one of the most famous movies and analyze the character of Rick Grimes in the Walking Dead series. But before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to your channel and follow us for more videos. The Walking Dead series is one of the best series of the last few years, and despite its significant drop in the middle seasons, it managed to keep its audience following the series. One of the most important reasons for the popularity of this series is the attractive character of Rick Grimes. The most basic feature of Rick's character is his ability to live in a world where everyone thinks about his profile. He was able to form a sympathetic and active group in that space. But Rick's leadership is not a simple leadership. He cultivated this leadership within himself with the stimuli around him. In other words, the type of Rick's leadership and his development in different periods of the apocalypse have a very direct relationship with the subconscious of this character and his inner desires. In this way, Rick's type of leadership undergoes transformations due to his busy subconscious and desires he doesn't bring to himself. In the following video, I divided these developments into different periods and dealt with them. First round, silent leadership. The beginning of this period coincidences with Rick joining the camp where his wife and child are. Rick is in his most one-dimensional state in this short period and has not yet publicly entered the leadership phase. But nothing happens that he becomes a deep character due to the events of this period. Rick, who is still not well acquainted with the polluted atmosphere of the apocalypse, easily trusts and helps people and keeps the morale he gained becoming a policeman. Rick doesn't visibly lead the campers. He thinks more about his family than other people in the group. The beginning of the change process. This change begins when Rick finds out about his friend Shane's betrayal. In the first encounter, he tries to ignore and not care much and actually runs away from the torment that comes to him. But his change continues to take its own path, and the first element that changes in Rick's character is his trust in others. With Shane's betrayal, Rick realizes that even a person's closest friend can be a traitor, so you shouldn't expect anything from a stranger. He gradually loses the trust he used to give easily to everyone and no longer trusts people. But the main change that Rick makes that has a direct impact on his behavior for the next period has a direct relationship with the weaknesses of his adolescence and youth. Before we address this weakness, let's take a look at Rick's past and have a theoretical reconstruction. Have you ever wondered why someone should choose a police job? It can have various reasons, but we want to talk more about its internal reasons. Maybe one person goes for this job because of the lack of excitement in their life, and another person for the concept of helping people. But why did Rick's character choose to become a policeman? We all saw his behavior when he lost his family. His hopeful efforts to find them really weren't anyone's business. This behavior of him shows an inner weakness, the weakness that Rick went to the police because of that. Rick's character is afraid of not being able to protect his loved ones. Probably in his youth, he encountered people who were always stronger than him, and Rick couldn't do anything against them. Until now, there is no mention of Rick's parents in this series, but maybe Rick lost them to someone who was stronger than him. This issue probably caused this weakness, which makes Rick unconsciously repeat one sentence over and over: I can't protect my loved ones. To compensate for this humiliating weakness, Rick entered the police profession so that he could both learn the necessary skills and vent his inner anger by arresting criminals. But let's go back to the present time where Lori tells Rick, Shane thinks you can't protect us and wants to take us over. In the same scene, a great anger comes to life inside Rick and makes Rick once again feel the effect of the weakness he experienced years ago. He still tries to keep his patience and forgive Shane, but the anger is so high that it can explode with just one trigger. That trigger was Shane's excess in trying to kill Rick. He no longer accepted any internal excuses and killed Shane. Rick's killing of Shane was a turning point for this character to have a whole attitude towards himself. He realized that he should not trust anyone. Since the complex of his teenage years also came to life, he entered another path to compensate for this weakness and thus entered the second period of leadership. Second period, active leadership. You can go anywhere you want, but if you're going to stay, there will be no more democracy. This course begins with Rick saying this dialogue. During this period, Rick tries his best to protect his loved ones in the best way, but part of this goal is for his own inner peace. This time, instead of sitting and watching the death of his loved ones and being taken over by others, he tries to enter the field and protect them at any cost, even at the cost of losing the honor and honesty of the previous era. In this period, Rick tries to prepare himself against external threats by self-improvement and kept faith in himself. The events of the past caused Rick to no longer trust anyone, and he abandons everyone, both oppressed and non-oppressed, and focuses only on his family and group. By leading the group, he somehow releases the energy of his inner anger that has been born again after years. Rick's character needed self-esteem to be able to trust himself again and believe that he is not a weak person. Fortunately, the rest of the group accepted his leadership to some extent, and Rick vented his anger step by step by leading the group. The beginning of the change process. Everything is going well until Rick is faced with the death of his wife. Still not completely getting over the feeling of humiliation he experienced in the first period, he experienced a greater feeling, anger that grew with the governor's attacks and paved the way for his fourth term. The concept that he couldn't always prevent fate tormented him badly, but he's not very good at venting his anger externally. That's why he made a big pride out of his anger. Since the feeling of anger and pride are directly related, Rick's character became a proud and self-conceited character due to this anger, who had the illusion of being powerful and had the feeling that no one could win against him. The third period, dark leadership. Rick this time, because of the events of the prison and the governor's adventures, he had a great anger inside him. On the other hand, he lost many of his loved ones, and on the other hand, the shelter that he had worked so hard for was destroyed. Again, he kept this anger inside him, and instead of venting it in a suitable way, he made a giant anger for himself, which eventually turned into a superiority complex. Maybe that's why the world's greatest psychologists always advise you to vent your inner anger in a proper way. Rick's character became extremely proud and delusional. He's always running away from danger on the surface, but there is a desire inside him to seek out and fight danger in order to vent this superiority complex and prove to everyone how powerful he can be. When Rick's group engages with the cannibal community, Rick delivers some interesting dialogue that perhaps hints at the same arrogance and delusion. They will soon understand that they are falling in love with a bad person. But somewhere this superiority complex of Rick becomes palpable when he enters Alexandria and proves his pride to everyone in a very tangible way. An example is when Rick plans to establish a new relationship with Jesse. It is also a taboo relationship. Many psychologists believe that when a character is drawn to taboo acts, he intends to release his mental complexes. This time it was Rick who got someone else, and the badness of Jess's husband was like a strong excuse, pushing Rick forward to appreciate this taboo move. Killing Jess's husband was ostensibly for saving within walls, but Rick did it to prove that nothing could stand in his way. Finally, Jess was killed by a large herd of movers. Like a madman, Rick went towards the movers with an axe so as not to hurt his pride. Of course, his work was a proper use of this superiority complex. The beginning of the change process. Rick's changes in this period goes through a long process, and it begins when he confronts Negan. At the beginning of the confrontation, he still had this sense of pride, and even in the last moments, he didn't stop chanting, "I will kill you, not today, not tomorrow, but eventually I will kill you." But after the death of his best friend, Rick entered the suppression phase. He no longer had the pride to lead his people. All his pride and anger became chains and Negan tied on his hands and feet. But Rick's character is not the kind of person who can bear this chain, so he tried his best to enter a great war and fight for freedom this time. His transformation process is complete when Rick finally defeats Negan. After the defeat of Negan, he came to the concept that true leadership means doing your best to inspire your people and fight for their freedom. In this way, he entered the fourth and last period of leadership. The fourth period, ideal leadership. In fact, Rick's character reaches a level of perfection in this period that he had never felt before. He has put aside his inner weakness and inspires his group members and community like a true leader. The lack of trust that he had in the previous periods is now less, and it is because he can get to know people better and make choices based on his experience. He doesn't have anger inside him, nor a complex that he wants to direct his behavior and repeat his mistakes. Of course, due to his anger and his internal complexes, he made many right decisions, and to the point that if it were not for his anger, he wouldn't have been motivated to think and evaluate the situation and would have been a passive member. The fourth and the last period of his leadership ended very soon, and he didn't have the opportunity to bring it to its peak. But in general, he was able to lead his people correctly, and even after his departure, he was able to participate in their victory in the Great Whisperer War and be a source of inspiration. Thank you for staying with me until here. If you'd like the video, please give it a like and share your ideas with me and other members in the comment section. And as usual, please don't forget to subscribe to the Review Movie channel for more videos. Thank you. Bye.